Okay, Miss Photographer.
Okay, so last night we were talking a little bit about the history of Vorio Ipiru. Is that correct?
Vorios Ipiros.
Vorios,
Northern Ipiros.
Northern Ipiros. And I was just curious, what are some of your first memories, or can you describe a little bit what life was like in the village of Policini?
The village of Policini was a very, very good life. It had the years of a very good life. But most, or just about all of the men, they had to go away from the village to find work, because in the village all they could do is do the fields. So the woman did a lot of that. Some men stayed behind to join the woman, just to be doing the fields of raising wheat and corn and other produce to put away for the winter: onions, potatoes, beans, fruits, stuff like that. Summers were just beautiful. We had very, very good waters in every, I don't know how would you call it, pigadi, spring water. Because we were, the town was at the foot of the mountain. So the water was always cold and refreshed and everything. So, and the summers were hot. Spring was early. Winters were almost like Maine. We would get snow. We could almost see, if you look up at the mountain from down in the village, you could see the reindeers and jumping on the snow, and other animals, very much like Maine. And the man did go, had a hunting season. They would kill deer, wild boar, wild pig.
Wow.
Yeah. And also pheasants in the spring, fall, I don't know. Because I left when I was 12 years old. We had a very good school that the townspeople built a lovely school, 2 floors, with money sent from men from America. Because naturally they had children there, and they didn't want to bring families in this country until much, much later. But they kept going back and forth, because they had left the wives behind and children. And even young men, when they came, let's say, at the age of 18 or 20 in the United States, they would still come to the old country and marry a woman from their village. Some took the wives with them to America, and some did not, because they thought life was better over there than here, because they weren't making that much money. So they tried to send some money to support the family at home and collect some money, to save some money, so they could come and settle for later years in the village, to invest the money or whatever.
So you mean because they felt they could have a better quality of life?
Yes.
They left the family behind and saved.
Yes.
Because the family lived cheaper in the old country.
Yes, much cheaper. I took a lot less money than, and in those days when they first came in the early 90s, 1900s, or even 1800s, they came, life was very difficult here. Pay was very, very little. If they made $5 a week.
So why didn't they just go to like Constantinople, like you said?
Well, a lot of the people from Vorios Ipiros were in Constantinople, but it got harder and harder to run their business, because most of the Policini people were business people. And when it became, when the Turks took over, the what do you call that word? The Ottoman Empire. Things were not easy for them to be in Turkey.
Okay. So when did people first start? When did the men first start going to America to make a living?
Early 1900s or late 1800s.
And what would they do over here?
A lot of them came here to Maine because there was in New England mostly, there were shoe factories, and in Biddeford they were making the towels and the sheets. What do you call that place now in Biddeford? With the little windows?
Some sort of mill, I don't know.
The mills. They were doing
It was a textile mill.
textile mill. And they all help each other, the people that knew, men and women, but most of the men worked in Biddeford, in Taunton, Massachusetts, because there were shoe factories. And my father worked even in Ford, in Detroit. Not that he was a mechanic, but when
the assembly line.
The assembly lines. And of course they didn't know the language. They had a hard time to learn the language. It isn't like today that you get help with any language you want to speak. You have a teacher or you have an interpreter. So hard times were very hard for them. As a matter of fact, I came to this country when I was 12 years old. And the first week in America, in New York City, I went to school without a word of English. And it wasn't easy for me. Whereas my brother was 8 years old, he learned the language right off because he went downstairs and played with the boys right on the street, roller skating and playing ball and everything. And I had a hard time to learn. My brother did help me. It took me some time to learn the language. I went to school until about the age of 16, and then I went to work. World War II was here, and they had us 16-year-olds and up. We could quit school and go and work at Woolworths or shoe factories or dress factories or doing other things, because the older woman, all the men were in the war, and the older woman worked at defense making ammunition, and the pay was a lot better than what we were getting. We were getting like 75 cents an hour.
So the women who were like middle-aged, they went and worked in the defense industry, making war machines or whatever.
Yes.
And then, so there were all these job openings
For 16-year-olds.
for younger people to take over the regular jobs that women would normally have.
You're right, Leah.
So they allowed you to just basically stop school?
Yes.
Because they wanted workers.
Yeah, they wanted workers. So they called them, they said, you can go and apply for your working papers. I don't even know what working papers were, but... And until the age of 19, I did that and helped with the family expenses, because we had a lot of relatives across Greece and Albania in the village that needed a lot of help. So we send them packages of food, sacks of flour, a lot of needy things for food, clothes, because my sister remained back when my mother and I and my brother came to America, because she had gotten married already.
So wait, let's back up just for a second. So when your father was going back and forth to America, working, sending money back, but also saving up.
Yeah.
Did he eventually buy a house in St. Louis, or what?
No, we've always rented.
And how did he decide it was time to bring you over?
As soon as he heard of this big war coming up, Second World War II, he felt that this war was going to be so bad that a lot of people would get killed besides people in the service, soldiers and what have you, with bombs and everything else. So as soon as he got his citizenship papers, he rushed to bring us here. As a matter of fact, coming from Greece on a passenger boat, Nea Elas, New Greece. It was the new boat that we came. It had a lot of passengers, and we were stopped by a German submarine in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean during dinner, and they ordered us all to go in our cabins, and they threw down ladders, and the German Navy climbed up in the ship. They spent about an hour or two searching the ship for ammunition. We were all in our cabins, except little boys like my brother, 8 years old, that was curious to see how the sailors came up and what they looked like and everything. And then he came in the cabin and told us all about it, but that's what happened. We were delayed 2 hours in the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow. Were you scared?
We were very scared, especially my mother with my brother not being in the cabin.
But they let you go?
Oh, yes.
And how long?
They only searched for a couple hours and they let us go.
They decided it was a civilian ship and
Yes.
let you pass.
And that was the last passenger boat coming from any place from Europe into the United States at the time. We arrived here in April
And then
of 1950, 49.
no. That's not right.
1940. 1940. Sorry.
1940?
1940.
Were you born in 1927?
7.
Oh, so you were 12 or 13?
Yeah.
Okay. So from the boat, where did you land? Did you come in through Ellis Island?
Ellis Island. My father was there waiting. An uncle, my mother's cousin, and an aunt. My father had rented a very nice apartment on 50th Street with 2 bedrooms. So my little brother and I share a bedroom, and my parents, and a living room and a kitchen. And the bathroom was being used, it was in the hallway, being used by 2 families. Each floor had 2 families.
Okay.
We didn't stay there very long because my aunt, my father's sister, lived in St. Louis, and when she came to New York to meet us, she and my father thought for us to move to St. Louis, and we did. And life was much better than in New York City. My aunt thought for the children, my brother and I, St. Louis would be better. And my father had a better job in St. Louis. And my aunt had a duplex home. She lived in one, we lived in the other. And we had some very, very good years there. We met some very nice people, very big Greek community. And I loved it. I had some good friends. There were no boys to date, even when we were 16, 17, and 18, because all the boys were in the war. So we friends, we'd just go to a movie with the girls on the weekend and things like that.
And what was that aunt's name?
My aunt's name was Fotini.
Oh.
She was, I've been told many times I resembled her. She had pure white hair, curly. She was very neat dressed and very nice. And my uncle and she did not have children of their own, so they adored my brother and I.
And how did they get established here?
Oh, my aunt and uncle came here even before my father did. And they settled in St. Louis. First they were in New England, and then they went to St. Louis, and they went on the business of their own. At first he had a candy store, making the candy and all the equipment and everything. But the railroad took that, they bought it off of him, and then he had a bar and a restaurant. So he was always in business for himself.
So that was your Thea Fotini?
My Thea Fotini
She was
and my
older than your...
there were two children in the family. My Thea Fotini was older than my father.
And what was your father's name?
Thodori.
And he married...
He married Fotini Exarchos from Policeni.
Okay, so his sister and his wife had the same
Yes.
name. Okay. And then
I ended up in Portland, Maine, which I loved also. And that's where I passed the rest of my life, because I came to a wedding, to my cousin's wedding in Massachusetts. And I was her bridesmaid. I came with my mother on a Greyhound bus. People were not flying from city to city in those days, in the 40s and 50s. And we came on the bus. And I was the bridesmaid, wearing pink, with a pink picture hat, and in this beautiful church Greek church in Springfield, Mass. And I was the first bridesmaid to walk down the aisle, and a young man asked the man that he came from Portland for the wedding, which was a relative of the groom. And he spotted me, and he asked the man, whose daughter is that? Who is she? And he happened to be a young man that had come also from Policeni at the age of 14 or 15 to be with his father in Brockton, Mass. But he had just returned prior to the wedding from serving 4 or 5 years in the army in the European front. He was home about 2 weeks at that time, and he came to the wedding. And we met, and from there on, we fell in love, and we got engaged soon after that. And about 6 months later, we got married. And I moved to Portland, Maine. The wedding took place in Portland, Maine, because most of the relatives, all the Policeni people, were between Brockton, Mass, and Portland, Maine. And it was a big wedding, relatives and friends. And my husband, Steve Shamos, had bought a house on Vanna Avenue, because those homes were being built for the soldiers only. His cousin that had just got married where we met had bought one, and he bought right next door because they were $11,000. And he had saved some money, about $5,000 during the war, which was his pay. And he put that down payment, and the house was not quite finished when we got married. So shortly after that, we moved into the house, and I loved it. It was my first single home. And although I was far from my family in St. Louis, I was very happy in Portland. It was a lovely city, and I had a lovely home. And then by the first year, we had a son. Michael. And 5 years later, we had twin girls. So Marie and Elaine. Now we had 3 children, so we had a big room, a family room, instead of changing homes, because we already had 3 bedrooms. And we ended our life right in Vanna Avenue. And we traveled quite a lot. After my husband retired, we went to Greece several times, we went to Albania, we went to Europe, we went to Mexico. We did quite a lot of traveling. And our son took over the business when my husband retired, and he retired kind of early due to high blood pressure or whatever, health business. And then we bought a condo in West Palm Beach and did about 25 years of winters there. Now all our children are married, and Marie had 3 children, and every winter she would bring all her children one by one in Florida. One would be on her piggyback, and one would be in the carriage, and one holding her hand. And they all hugged us, and they couldn't wait for the next morning to go down to the pool. And they would stay through their school vacations and enjoyed Florida very much. So did the son and the other daughter, Elaine, and their families have enjoyed Florida along with us every winter for about 25, 30 years. And then we had some sadness in the family, some sickness. We lost our daughter, Marie, and that took a lot of happiness from our lives. But it was God's gift. We'd never aimed for twins, for 2 daughters, but we were delighted to have them. And he left Marie for a shorter time here with us and her family. But we are very fortunate because we have 3 beautiful grandchildren from Marie: Leah, Thiana, and Noah, that we love very much and are very, very close with them. And we are very, very proud of them. As a matter of fact, one just got married. The youngest one, the youngest of the girls. And I hope to live to see the other 2 get married. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 grandchildren married, and we have 4 great-grandchildren. Andrew, Mike's boy, has 2 beautiful little girls, and Alex, Elaine's son, has 2 beautiful little boys. And I lost Steve about 4 years ago. He went peacefully, no hospital or anything. He was almost 92. I am now 90, and very fortunate to have all of my family, grandchildren, daughter, son, right here in Portland. And they look after me, they call me, they take me out. So I'm having a good old age. And I'm still in my own home. That was the story of my simple life of many years.